How do we play all of that into what's going to go down in the draft tomorrow?
Yeah, and I think that's a great way to set it up, because these guys could be traded this weekend. It doesn't necessarily mean that it has to happen on Thursday. And why is that? Well, because the Miami Dolphins, the Atlanta Falcons, they're not getting first-round picks for these guys. So it could happen on Friday morning, Friday afternoon, Friday evening. It could even happen into Saturday, right? If you think that Kirk Cousins is going to go for a 4th or 5th round pick, well, those rounds begin on Saturday. And so that is just something to look out for, Jenny, this weekend with the draft. We always wait and see what sort of veterans could potentially be on the move. The Miami Dolphins have been very clear about their wish and desire to unload Jalen Ramsey onto another team, the 4-time first-team All-Pro, who is due $21.1 million in 2025. If they are going to trade him, and I ultimately believe that they will, they're going to have to eat a decent portion of that salary. Half, 3/4, all those things that will have to be discussed and figured out between the two teams. And then, of course, the Atlanta Falcons with Kirk Cousins. They want another team to take on really all of his salary if they are going to trade for him. I don't know that that's going to happen either. And so, look, if you're not going to find a dance partner for one of these veterans to trade for this weekend, that's sort of okay, because now you'll just get 2026 compensation when you eventually do trade these players. And it will happen, at least in the case of Jalen Ramsey. So that's something to be on the lookout for. I don't know that those veterans necessarily will be going this weekend, but a player like a Will Levis, for example, as soon as the Tennessee Titans take Cam Ward, I think the whole NFL knows that a guy like Will Levis can be had. And if you don't think too highly of these quarterbacks in this draft, if you believe that Will Levis, for his flaws and faults that we've seen the last couple years, is better than whatever 5th-round quarterback you can get on Saturday, why don't you send a 5th-round pick to Tennessee to get Will Levis?
So much that goes into it. There's also players looking for new contracts, guys like Fred Warner, Brock Purdy wanting to get paid, George Kittle making news today. There were reports out there that his absence was contract related. The two sides remain far apart. He's coming out on social saying your source is incorrect. So there's all the drama surrounding that as well. How does that affect the draft?
So in the case of San Francisco, I don't know that they and their issues necessarily impact the draft. It is going to be talked about and discussed, no question about it. They pick at number 11. I have them selecting Walter Nolan out of the University of Mississippi there. But when it comes to this, where we talk about the Dolphins and the draft picks they could get, or Atlanta and the picks they could get, or the quarterback maybe that they could take on a day 3, that's not really the case with San Francisco. Brock Purdy is going to become the highest paid player in San Francisco 49ers history when that deal gets done. Now, historically, the Niners have usually taken a whole lot of time on getting so many of these deals done, probably longer than they need to, that have stretched deep into training camp. But Purdy showing up at voluntary workouts, we'll see if that continues into the mandatory minicamp. We'll see if that continues into training camp, because as someone who's on a rookie contract, he does not have to appear. He won't be docked something like $50,000 a day. And then as we continue on, Fred Warner, look, they know that Fred Warner is an all-universe type of linebacker. I don't think that the Niners believe that this is going to be a difficult contract to ultimately hammer out. So many of these teams say, all right, we're focused on free agency, then we're focused on the draft, and then we're going to focus on this. And so I believe that Fred Warner, that Brock Purdy will remain at San Francisco 49ers, and they will be paid handsomely to do so. I also believe ultimately that George Kittle is going to remain with the Niners, but that contract negotiation could certainly get a little interesting. Look, the Niners, when I just talked about how you do A, B, and C, the Niners knew that Trey McBride and the Arizona Cardinals, that they were going to come together and make McBride the highest paid tight end in NFL history. You probably knew that at Combine. You probably knew that after the season. And you know that George Kittle, a several-time All-Pro tight end, he's coming up. He's due. He's been quiet the last couple of years, as all those other folks that we just showed on the screen who just got paid. He's going to want to get paid. So can you just get ahead of it? Can you just go ahead and pay him $1 more than Travis Kelce at the time so that you can go ahead and get out in front of that Trey McBride deal? They did not. And so we'll see how long this ultimately stretches out. Of course, Trey McBride in his mid-20s, George Kittle on the other side of 30. And Jenny, I don't have to tell you that being on the other side of 30 is old.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm on the right side of 30. We're going to go with
Yeah, me
that.
too.
Yeah, sure. Jonathan Jones with the latest in the NFL, getting us ready for the draft. We're old. It's fine. It's just comes with being wise. We'll say that. Looking at the NFL draft and these upcoming dates, it is tomorrow. That's when round 1 is going down, 8 p.m. Eastern. It's all happening in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Friday, we're going to have rounds 2 to 3 at 7 p.m. and Saturday, round 1 day away. Every year we question who will go in the first round. Harder to predict who will go in the top 10. Well, thankfully, our experts are here to dive into all the research. It's been mock draft after mock draft, film study after film study, and tomorrow we will have all the answers. Will they be spot on? Well, we'll just wait to see. Our lead NFL insider, Jonathan Jones, joining us now. So the New York Giants, they have several options at pick number 3. A good spot to be. Drafting a quarterback, maybe go with the defensive star like Abdul Carter, trading down to get more draft capital. What do the Giants do with that number 3 pick, JJ?
Yeah, a couple of great options there. Right now, everyone around the league that I speak to still believes that Abdul Carter will be the selection for the New York Giants at number 3. In fact, Abdul Carter, speaking with reporters in Green Bay during a community event, was basically asked that question. He said, yeah, it looks like New York for now, but we will certainly see. Look, the Giants, they have looked at quarterbacks for some time. There's no question about it, dating back to last year. I do not believe they will take a quarterback at number 3. I have not believed that for a few weeks now. Could they potentially either trade down from 3 and then take a quarterback, depending on where they land, or take Abdul Carter at number 3 and then where they are at the top of the second, potentially trade back up into the first round for a quarterback? Yes, of course, they could absolutely do that. But as it stands right now, Abdul Carter appears to expect to be a New York Giant. I expect him to be a New York Giant because of how talented he is as a pass rusher. And look, yes, they have Brian Burns. Yes, they have Kayvon Thibodeau. But you add another elite pass rusher to that mix, and you figure it out from there. Perhaps Kayvon Thibodeau finds his way out of New York eventually. That's a problem to be worried about later. You take best player available, and at number 3, it would be Abdul Carter.
Oh, it's going to be an interesting Thursday evening. A lot of questions will be answered then. A lot of teams interested in Ashton Jeanty after the show that he put on last season. One team we keep hearing about over and over and over again, the Jags at number 5 overall. JJ, what are you hearing?
I don't think the Jags are going to be scared to trade up, to trade down, to stay at their pick and take someone that maybe you expected, maybe you didn't. Look, they have a new general manager in James Gladstone at the healthy, ripe age of 34 years old. He doesn't have a background in terms of picking guys in the draft. He had been with the Rams his entire NFL experience, obviously in a support role for GM Les Snead, but we don't have any background on James Gladstone about what he likes, what he doesn't like, who he should target, who he usually targets at number 5 overall. Look, Ashton Jeanty, there's no question about it, is the top running back in this year's draft, well ahead of Omarion Hampton out of North Carolina. But does that mean that a 34-year-old general manager is going to spend a premium pick on a running back? Jenny, I don't know. I know that there's a lot of noise. And look, when we get this close to draft and when there's a whole lot of noise around something that just kind of appeared a couple of days ago, well, of course, it means one of two things. It's either true or it's not, right? But I'm just a little skeptical that he will be the pick for the Jaguars at 5. Will I be surprised if he's not? No, because I don't think that the Jags necessarily fell in love with their running back room. I think that they have been interested in potentially upgrading that room. But to spend that pick on a running back, a very good one, but not Saquon Barkley, not Christian McCaffrey. Folks I talked to are a little dubious of that. Of course, we will see, but I think everything from trading up, which I don't think they're going to do, to trading back, to taking someone along either line, to potentially an Ashton Jeanty or a wide receiver, all on the table for the Jaguars.
You're just mentioning trading up, trading back. There's so much movement expected to happen tomorrow night. Can you walk us through a couple of the teams willing to trade up?
Yeah, so look, everyone, more or less, there are far more teams who are saying are very interested in trading down. Right, this is not the strongest draft. We have repeated that time and again, and so we understand that. I anticipate on the podcast with Mike Renner and Kyle Long yesterday, they set the over-under at 3.5 trades. I said over, hammer the over. There are going to be so many draft day trades. But a lot of those are going to be trading down. Of course, you have to find a dance partner to trade back up. So who could that potentially be? Look, the Chicago Bears are one of the first teams that comes to mind, right? I know that they have a great deal of interest in Ashton, Jeanty. They have a great deal of interest in Tyler Warren, perhaps one of the offensive linemen. We certainly have to wait and see how that's going to shake out. I do believe the first offensive lineman taken in this year's draft will be Will Campbell at number 4 to the Patriots. But you continue going down, and at 14, the Indianapolis Colts. Look, a lot of folks think that they could be aggressive. And Chris Ballard, you have to believe this is a make or break year for him, the general manager there, who still has not won the AFC South. So maybe they make a play potentially for a tight end. And then lastly, at number 20, the Denver Broncos have not been shy about getting the word out there. They are interested to go up. From 20, boy, that's a long way to go up to get a real true difference maker, right? You're going to have to go up 7, 10, 12 spots. Look, there are some teams like the Carolina Panthers, for example, picking at number 8. They're not going to have a problem trading back just a little bit, right? They can still get one of their guys, right? And I'm using them as an example. But to go, let's say, from an 11 to 20, you could be out of first rounders by the time you get to 20, for example, on your board. So that is going to be a big risk for any team willing to make a deal with Denver. But make no mistake, the Denver Broncos do want to make a move up.
Oh, there's going to be a lot of movement. Okay, so hammer the over when it comes to teams that we are expecting to trade around. You mentioned that there's a lot of smoke and mirrors at this point. You know, the draft going down tomorrow night, there has been a lot of news coverage of Shedeur Sanders. Good, bad, indifferent. It seems now trending more towards the bad side of things. He's hinting that he wants the Steelers to draft him. We're hearing quite a bit when it comes around his name. What's the latest with Shedeur?
So if you have followed our coverage really since the Combine, we were telling you that Cam Ward was distancing himself from Shedeur Sanders. Neither one of them did anything on the field at Combine. So the only thing that they did were interviews. So how did Cam Ward distance himself from Shedeur Sanders if you didn't do anything on the field? You know, it wasn't like everybody just got together and started watching more tape during that week. No, they were talking to him. And in some of those interviews, there was some rubbing the people the wrong way, right? I think I referred to it back in February, early March, as sort of sandbagging a little bit in those interviews, trying to dictate a little bit where he could go, where he could end up. You know, that's not what this NFL draft is. Frankly, you know, you're going to play for who drafts you. And so we have sort of seen a lot of folks start to kind of catch up with what has been said on background around the NFL. First, he could be QB1, and then it was he was going to the Giants. Now, most people probably agree he's not going number 3 to the Giants. And then, you know, last week, even though we were telling you the New Orleans Saints were not going to be taking him at 9, the word was that the Saints maybe could take him at 9, especially because of Derek Carr's mysterious shoulder injury that could require season-ending surgery. And then you continue on, Jenny, where yesterday the Pittsburgh Steelers, picking at number 21 overall, Mike Tomlin just went on and on and on about Shedeur Sanders. And it was very un-Tomlin-like. And it felt a little bit, the more he kept praising Shedeur, and I'm not saying he didn't mean any of the praise. All the praise could very well be warranted, and probably is. But it felt like this was a little bit of a smokescreen for some reason for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Why is it that you are speaking so loudly and proudly about this player? Is it because you want to help correct what you believe to be an inaccurate narrative that is developing out there on the young man? You guys may take him, you may not. That is how I read what Mike Tomlin was talking about there with the Pittsburgh Steelers at number 21. Now, look, in my mock draft, I did not have Shedeur Sanders or any quarterback going in the first round other than Cam Ward. I absolutely believe that there can be a quarterback or two that do go after Cam Ward at some point in the first round. But that was based off of what I had heard from a number of teams who said Shedeur Sanders is a second-round quarterback. You take the name off the back of the jersey, maybe it doesn't get retired in Colorado, and we are just looking directly at who this player is on film. He's a second-round quarterback. And so that's why I have him going in the second round. But can a team, the Giants...
Cowboys Nation, hold everything. Adam Schefter just dropped a bombshell on NFL Live, and it involves a certain all-pro tight end who's been a nightmare for defenses and a thorn in our side for years. George Kittle is officially on the trade block, and Jerry Jones is on line 1. Quick lower third. Report 49ers shopping George Kittle. Cowboys emerge as frontrunners. Imagine lining up week 1 with CD Lamb split wide, Brandon Cooks stretching the field, Christian McCaffrey, still believing in the backfield, and George freaking Kittle attached to the line. Defensive coordinators would need therapy, folks. Flash on screen poll. Would you trade a 2025 2ND rounder plus a 2026 fourth for Kittle? Type yes or no in the comments right now. Adam Schefter on NFL Live. Today, April 24th, confirmed Kittle skipped the first voluntary workouts in Santa Clara. Mike Silver, The Athletic, followed up, absence is 100% contract-related in San Francisco is actively listening to offers, with Dallas labeled the most aggressive caller. Diana Rossini doubled down. Kittle wants to reset the tight end market. Niners don't want to sink $1,820 million per year after already shelling out extensions to Bosa, Ayuk, franchise tag, and Debo. Scheme fit. Mike McCarthy's new OC, Kellen Moore, welcome back, thrives on 12 personnel mismatches. Roster gap. Jake Ferguson made a leap, but stacking Ferg with an all-pro mauler like Kittle? Nightmarish. Cap math. Dallas sits is almost equal to $27 million under the 2025 cap after restructures to Dak and Zach Martin. A backloaded Kittle deal is doable today. Win now mandate, 3 straight 1-5 seasons, 0 NFC title game appearances. Jerry's 82, the hourglass is screaming. Cowboys receive TE George Kittle and 49ers receive 2025 2ND round pick, number 56. 2026 conditional fourth escalates to third if Kittle hits 1,000 yards or Dallas reaches NFC title game. On-screen note, contract year, Kittle entering final season of 5 YRS/75 million. Age/health, turns 32 in October, missed 18 games since 2020. Cost, 2 day 2 picks plus likely $5060 million extension. Target share drama, keeping CD happy while feeding Kittle and McCaffrey. Rewards. Elite blocker and YAC monster in one package. Red zone savior, Dallas ranked 20th TD percentage inside the 20. Sends a nuclear signal to Philly and San Fran. It's our conference now. Cowboys Nation, picture Dak under center, motioning Kittle across, linebackers freezing, McCaffrey leaking to the flat, boom, 35-yard seam shot to George for 6. That's the vision. But is the juice worth the squeeze? Drop your verdict. Comment pay the man if you're all in. Or comment keep the picks if you pass. Smash like if you want Schefter to tweet trade finalized tonight. Subscribe for instant emergency lives. And share this with a friend still crying over our red zone woes. This has been Dallas Cowboys Today. Your home for every rumor, roster shakeup, and draft day shockwave. I'm your host, the eternally optimistic, occasionally heartbroken, always loud cowboy in chief. Stay tuned, stay rowdy, and as always, how about them Cowboys?